I am quick to be able to weasel out, I say, the real from the fakes, meaning that they're really about it, because it's a lot of lip service. Because when it comes to, being successful or becoming a professional athlete or anything, I always say there has to be some sort of sacrifice. And it's not many that's willing to sacrifice their life for their dream, because ultimately that's what it takes. I had to sacrifice everything, coming up. There was a lot of things that I missed as a kid, because it was always work before play.
Amos Madra.
Drew Lasker, coach, former BBL champ, someone who has won so much, done so much for the game of basketball, and especially British basketball. And, you continue to do that with your broadcasting career now as a broadcaster with Sky Sports and the British Basketball League as well. A warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for that introduction.
Drew, I like to, take it all the way back. Where did that love for basketball come from? And at what point did you realize that this is it? I want to make a career out of this.
As early as I can remember, I grew up in Germany, and from then, I remember being on a basketball team. And I actually wasn't until this summer. I actually thought that was the first time I played, but I learned this summer that my dad sent me to a basketball camp when we lived in Kentucky when I was like 4 or 5. So when I moved back to the States when I was 8, and I discovered Michael Jordan, that's when I really fell in love. He became my idol, my hero. And that's when I put all of my energy into trying to get to that level. So, it was one of those things to where I always knew.
That's really interesting. It started outside of the US. Being an American, you would have thought, in school, that sort of setting. But yeah, it really interesting to see how you fell in love with the game itself. Now, obviously, for you to get to the level that you've got to, it takes dedication. There's so many people that would love to play basketball professionally. Talk to us about that journey.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I coach. I have a training business in the States. And so I come into contact with a lot of youth who have big dreams and aspirations, but I am quick to be able to weasel out, I say, the real from the fakes, meaning that they're really about it, because it's a lot of lip service. Because when it comes to, being successful or becoming a professional athlete or anything, I always say there has to be some sort of sacrifice. And it's not many that's willing to sacrifice their life for their dream, because ultimately that's what it takes. I had to sacrifice everything, coming up. It was a lot of things that I missed as a kid, because it was always work before play, whereas a lot of other people, their priorities are the other way around. It's always, let me, do what I love and enjoy. And whatever time I got left over, I'll put that into my dream. For me, it was, I put my energy into my dream, and whatever time's left over, that's the time for parties. That's the time for friends. That's the time for everything else. So, it comes down to habits, having great habits. And, when you talk about that dedication, it's important, because it's a lot of times to where you don't feel like it or you're tired. And that's why I always say it's great everyone should set goals, long-term goals, short-term to goals. So when you run into that moment or that little time period to where you're just in a little funk and you're not motivated, you have that goal, that dream that's written on the wall that you're like, okay, I got to get out of bed and I got to do it today, because that's what I put up there to strive towards.
Yeah, amen to that. I mean, that's absolutely brilliant. I love to hear that, when I speak to athletes or people who've achieved great things, and the dedication and the commitment to that goal. Now, that's clearly paid off. You left your home country, you came abroad to a foreign land. Even though we speak the same language, the culture is different, the food is different. You had to
Yep.
adjust. The weather's different in many ways, so you had to adjust to so many different things. You know, talk to us about that, and then embedding yourself in this new team culture with Newcastle Eagles. We'll talk more about the Eagles shortly, but that journey, that transition into to the UK.
Yeah, I was willing um to go anywhere to live out my dream, even if that meant leaving my family, leaving my comfort zone, or going on the other side of the world. I just knew that I wanted to be a professional basketball player. And, with that, before even becoming professional, it took, um, being in debt, going broke. I was willing to sacrifice all of that. And, when I first came over to the UK in 2005, I thought that any country would be closest to America. I thought it would be the UK, but it was far from the truth. It was so different from the language to the food. Most importantly, you're talking about a kid that's coming from Texas, and just so many things to adjust and to adapt to. But um, that's when, like, as I've gotten older, I've realized these things. I didn't realize it when I was young, but a lot of my mentality was developed growing up in Germany, because in order to survive in a foreign country, you have to be very open-minded. You have to embrace the culture. And one thing that I always did was embrace the British culture. Whereas, I've had people, come over and visit, and they complain about the culture of how everything is so different from America. And I've had to say, hey, everyone doesn't follow the American blueprint. A lot of these countries was established before American. So, that's why a lot of people aren't able to adapt. But I had an adaptable mentality. My dad, being in the military for 22 years, and my discipline comes from that. And then my mom, I'm seeing her get up and go to work every day. That hard work and drive comes from her. So yeah, I had the open-mindedness to be able to adapt.
Yeah, really, really interesting, and of all places to adapt, the Northeast, Newcastle, very different. So, the wonderful people of Newcastle, what a great place, culture. But yeah, again, very different to Texas, very different to that lifestyle. But I'm sure the hospitality, the warmness of the people, that there was similarities in that.
Yeah, it was actually a little bit easier because I started my career in Plymouth, and I came over at 22 and I left Plymouth at 30. Whereas when I came to Plymouth, I was by myself. I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anything. It was pre-internet. It was just nothing. So that was a bigger adjustment than Newcastle. I moved to Newcastle at 30, with my wife. And so it was a little bit of easier adjustment, even though there still was a huge adjustment, because you're talking about two opposite ends of the country, Newcastle and Plymouth. But Newcastle, the people reminded me of Texas. Of we call it Southern hospitality. I call it Northern hospitality here in the UK, because the people in Newcastle are very friendly. And one thing we had to adapt to was the genuineness, because usually what we found is that people are nice because they're uh, trying to get something or want to be in the know. But like, the people in Newcastle are just genuine. They just nice because that's just who they are. And so that was an adjustment. But yeah, it wasn't as difficult as moving to Plymouth at 22, but there still was. And 10 years later, it's almost 10 years in September. I mean, yeah, September, that would have been in Newcastle. And it's home to us.
Yeah, and talk to us about your time with the Eagles. I mean, what a team. You guys were just dominant. You dominated the league. It was just it was about you guys, and you really brought, you kept the league going, and you kept, the BBL going, and it was just incredible just to see, how a championship team, the pedigree, that again, dogged mentality. It was different. It was something that we'd probably not seen before in the BBL.
Yeah, it was everything that I wanted. I had always watched Newcastle from afar, and I had accomplished a lot individually. But I knew that, beyond basketball, because I pay attention to a lot of stuff. I knew that winning is what opens up a lot of doors. And so I saw the success that the organization was having from afar. As soon as I got that phone call, it was a no brainer. And I wanted to be part of that. And not only be part of that, but I wanted to be able to contribute to that, to where, I can create my own legacy, not just joining the bandwagon. But yeah, it was a great 8-year run. I mean, you talk about, I was just talking to Ramon Fletcher not long ago. I had an interview with him, and we just talked about of how many, all we used to do is celebrate, because all we did was win. So we would be out all the time popping champagne bottles because we were celebrating something. And that is no better feeling than that. Especially in a team sport where there's a lot of sacrifice, family gets sacrificed. And then when you meet that ultimate goal, all that journey, that and all those trials and tribulations that you've been through, makes it so worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. And congratulations again for all the wins, and you continue to win today. With what you're doing with Sky Sports and BBL. Talk to us about that. Retiring a few years back and making this transition so smoothly into broadcasting. I think you were made for this.
Yeah, it's funny. People say that all the time. There was one thing that I wanted, and I think my professional career starting off by not getting a job and sitting out for a year kind of shaped my mentality throughout my career, because I knew at any moment the rug could be pulled from underneath me. And I watch guys as well through all sports, not just the BBL, but just NBA. One thing that I noticed is that transitioning out of professional sports for athletes is not easy. And I always saw guys in a position having to do what they had to do to make ends meet. And I always said I wanted to be in a position to do what I wanted to do. So I was always in the background preparing for what was next, because I wanted to be able to choose what I wanted to do. And so that ultimately ended up being broadcasting, which was, you asked me 3 years ago, that wasn't even on the radar at all. I mean, it's funny because I grew up a very shy kid, and my freshman year of college, I took a class called public speaking, and I couldn't even sleep at night, getting ready for that class every day. So, everything that I'm doing now is the total opposite of how I ever imagined. But now that I'm in this seat, I've grown to love broadcasting, and I'm passionate about it. I work hard at it and loving every moment of it.
Talk to us about the support that you've had from the BBL. You've got your own production company, of course, and you're very much involved in terms of the production side of helping the BBL get its content out.
Yeah, again, that's just one of those things that's my pandemic baby there. I had been asked from a parent. So I run a business in America, a training business, as I mentioned earlier, train hundreds of kids. And there was this one parent come up to me one time and asked me what I thought of podcasting. And I was like, nah, not interested. And so she tugged at me for like 3 years about it. And then after that, I started listening to podcasts differently. I was like, actually, I could do this because it's just a conversation, really. You got to structure it, but it's just a conversation. And then she pulled me into the studio, and I was like, actually, this is kind of fun. So during the pandemic, because everything became remote, as you and I are remote now, that's when remote interviews became acceptable, and we actually launched our podcast called 21. And so we were working with a production company at the time, and we were just very frustrated in the professionalism, the turnaround time. And we were like, we could actually do this ourselves. So we started editing it ourselves. And then we were like, actually, we could provide this for other people, because we knew the things that we were frustrated with, we can help others. Because as you know, having your own show is that the fun part is sitting in the seat and recording. No one wants to go back and have to edit all of this stuff. You know what I mean? So we just took away from our experience of what we liked and didn't enjoy, and was like, people love recording and love sharing the goodness. So if we can take all that other stuff off their hands, um, we can help a lot of people. So that's how 21 Media got started. And then from there, it was just a shot in the dark. My co-host on the BBL show, Jay Merritt, I actually had recorded the episode with him on his Facebook show. This is during the pandemic again. And he was like, we should do this, ask the BBL about it. So I went and pitched it to him. And they were like, it was just all about timing. It was just like, this is actually everything that I have on my notebook. And we were like, we'll take everything off your hands. You don't have to do anything. We'll produce the content. And that was music to their ears because they had a thin roster anyway behind the scenes. So they didn't have the capacity to do everything that we're doing for the show and providing for the show. And so that's how all that just come about. It's just about, that cliche about preparation, meeting opportunity. Just, I've always been someone that's worked hard and tried to be the best version of myself in everything that I'm doing. And along the way, by doing so, opportunities have just fell on my lap.
Absolutely. The lines had fallen onto you in pleasant places, indeed.
Yeah.
But it took dedication. It took hard work. It wasn't just by accident. You were prepared for it. So when the opportunity did come, you were ready for it. And I think that goes back to, you as an athlete and just even thinking beyond sports and preparing yourself for eventualities, for after sports and that transition into a different world, which is, but the same ethics, dedication, and hard work paid. And as a result, this opportunity presented itself, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And I would say that that would be my advice to anyone listening out there is that you never know where this life is going to take you. So everything that you're doing right now at the moment is just preparing you for the next thing. So while you're doing that thing that you might not be so passionate about, try to be the best at it because there's skills that you're going to take away from that you're going to be able to transfer into the next thing that you do. So a lot of times if people aren't doing something that they're passionate about, they're just going through the motions. And that's why I say you never know. Everything that I'm doing up to this point, I've done before in my past, not knowing that it would all lead to this. But in those things that I was doing, I was trying my best to do it to my best capability, even though it wasn't my strength.
Wow, incredible. Absolutely incredible. And again, going back to with the BBL, the podcast took off. You brought so much on the YouTube channel. There wasn't much going on the BBL YouTube channel. Obviously, there was still contracts with other broadcasters online. There was still talks with Sky. There was a few odd games. But then, everything fell together nicely over the past year or so, where there were more games that were being broadcast. It was more regular. YouTube opened up so many things with, condensed games on YouTube, highlights, full games, highlights, full games, just the whole array. And then this new marketing campaign, Know Our Name.
Yeah.
All this fell together nicely. Talk to us about what's going on right now and what's the vision for the future.
Well, the vision for the future is visibility, as all the things that you just mentioned is that the issue in the past with the BBL was that no one knew about it. And all the platforms that it was on when it was showcased was behind paywalls. And it didn't make any sense to me because I'm like, how can you invite new fans and make them pay for it? I mean, I wouldn't go pay for a sport that I've never even watched or heard of as my first experience. Usually you stumble across stuff. And so it was crucial that all this stuff is visible first and then it's accessible. For example, YouTube, it's free for everybody to go watch. Now, every single game in the league is on the YouTube channel, followed by highlights, followed by content throughout the league. You spoke about the hashtag know your name. It's exactly that. People love sports because they love their teams, but they love the stories as well. It's the storylines that really, allow sports to take off. So that's the mission of the league in the short term is getting our message out there, getting our players out there, so you can know their story, their history, their journey, and then whilst all trying to showcase our product, which is free on the BBL's YouTube channel and also once a week on the Sky Sports YouTube channel. So that's the aim in the short term. With the goal in the long term is to pick up a broadcast deal, and I feel like the league is on its way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is because of that. I think it's opened up the league to so many people. I'm seeing the basketball teams having more interactions with their followers. Their social media channels are blowing up. So clearly, it's made an impact and it's made a positive impact. How much input have you had in this whole marketing campaign?
It's funny because I'm obviously very visible, and doing a lot of stuff for the league, and people take that as me having uh I don't know if it's control is the right word, but a big voice behind the scenes, but nothing at all. I'm just, if there's opportunities, they'll come ask me if I want to do it. And that as far as it goes, the only thing that I have input in is the BBL show. Everything else that's happening with the marketing campaign with the league and everything, that is above my pay grade. So I have no input in that at all. My job is to support it and to help magnify the message, whatever the league message is. So I don't work for the league or anything like that. And so, yeah, I just wanted to make that clear because a lot of people just assume that just because like I tweet a lot about it, I'm involved in a lot of stuff, but yeah, I don't work for the league at all.
Well, it's certainly working anyway, and long may it continue because I think it's great. It's more visible, and I think people are interacting and getting involved with British basketball, and they deserve to. And I think British basketball, it's been trying to find its foot, and I think it's been trying to find its way. There's so many sports in this country, but basketball is one of the most popular sports. You meet anyone on the street, they'll tell you, they're happy to play a game. They could name, a handful of NBA players, and you wonder if they can do that, and then what's going on with British basketball. That, and this has been a conversation that's been going on for a long time. Do you think things are changing for the better now? Do you think we're going through a good transition for people to know more about the league itself?
Yeah, I think so. I always say this. I say no one has the answer because there's so many different opinions out there about the direction of the league. Just because you're doing something and just because you're working hard at it doesn't guarantee you success. But I will say this, I will say that wherever this ends up for British basketball, it won't be any worse than what it was. That's a fact. Now will we meet the expectations and the goals? It remains to be seen. No one knows that answer. But the people in place are doing everything that they can to get there. And I believe it will. Because we already know that basketball is the second most participated team sport in the UK. The disconnect has been you got all these kids playing basketball, but they have nothing tangible that they can see, touch, and feel. NBA is galaxies away for these young kids. Now they can turn on the TV and say, "Oh man, a team in Bristol, a team in London. Oh man, that's my hero, and he's 50 miles up the road from me." So now kids have, a league that they can aspire to. If it's not the NBA, that they could touch. They have a player that they can look up to, and and so it's all falling in the right direction. And it comes back to visibility. The only way that happens if it's seen, right? Like I don't think the Premier League would be as popular if it wasn't on television. It's because it's seen everywhere. across the media. It's on the news, it's on social media, it's on Sky Sports. And so, it's part of the culture here. And the same can happen with basketball.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what a great ambassador you are for the game of basketball. So, Drew, again, everything you're doing is so good, and I really appreciate the input you've had in basketball. And I think thanks to people like you, you've changed the narrative, you've changed the perception, and I think you've made the game more attractive for people to get into. What's the plans for the future for you? What do you want to achieve over the next few years?
Yeah, that is a great question. So when I retired, the one thing that I said to our managing director at Newcastle Eagles, because there was a lot of different things, opportunities that he laid out for me, directions I can go, and I said, for the first 2 years, flexibility is what's most important. I want to be able to dibble and dabble into multiple things so I could see what it is that I want to do. Because 2 years ago, I had no idea exactly what I wanted to do. Now I'm coming up to that 2 year period. um, I still prioritize flexibility because I'm a guy that likes doing different things. But I would say at the top of that list, I would say definitely media, whatever that consists of. If that's writing articles, if that's interviewing players, if that's presenting on television, I'm open to doing all of those things. I've really developed a passion for it, a hunger for it. And so if there's an opportunity down the line to be able to do that full time, that would be a dream. Um, in the meantime, I'll still be involved in it to some capacity because obviously I have a media company, and doing a little coaching here and there. And so, yeah, where the future goes, who knows? I mean, like I said, where I am 5 years from now could be completely different. I'll just say this, that I'm going to enjoy the ride, and wherever I land, you're going to see the best version of me.
Wow, Drew Lasker, you are a true champ, a true winner, a true baller. When I think about you, I think about dedication, commitment, drive, hunger, discipline, and focus. And I think if we can just take a little bit of that and apply it to our own lives, we'll be able to do some incredible things. And, I'm just so thankful for you to come and bless us with your presence and energy. And it's been so good just talking to you and hearing your journey. And I'm sure there's still great more things to come. I'm really happy for you. You found something that you're passionate about, that you love doing, almost as much as you love your basketball. And I know that, there's going to be some great things still to come in the future. Before we let you go, how can the audience connect with you?
So they can connect to me. I'm pretty much everywhere, except I'm on TikTok, but I haven't been active there. I've said I wasn't joining any more social platforms, but I guess that's the way the world is, right? So I got to get more active. But you can find me pretty much everywhere. Drew Lasker 21. The only place that it's different, where I'm probably the most active, is Twitter, which is Drew 21 Pink. And then you can check out my website, drewlasker.com, if you just want to learn more about my story. And that's where everything, you can find out everything there is about me. Otherwise, you can catch me on Sky Sports every Friday night presenting for the British Basketball League. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
True, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for having me on.
If you want some amazing inspiration, check out the videos next to me, and I'll see you right there.